Boom! Just like that, it's Thursday night, and you guys all know what that means. It's party time with the Video Bros. I'm Bobby Munson, the man beside me, the man with the angelic voice. Say it with me, chat. It's Papa Smokes. Papa Smokes. Happy Thursday, brother. How are you?
Oh, yeah, brother. It is a happy Thursday because I'm here with you doing Ring Respect Radio on Ole Podcast Network. So, yeah, man, doing good and having a good time. And a big shout out to all my wrestling people. Hey, who's all in the chat there tonight? Let's hear from you.
Well, let's start it off with a good friend of ours. I'm talking about the voice, Joshua Joseph, up in the house. What up, boys?
Yo, Josh.
How goes it? Josh, doing fantastic, my man. And again, always, everybody, go check out the work of our good friend Joshua Joseph. Check out A Moment with Joshua Joseph, the great, wonderful podcast, as well as his work with his group doing the In Your House HAWSE show, because the W is for work. That's what it's all about. And we got the third video bro up in the house here tonight saying, boom! Yeah. It's Basser. How you doing, brother? Hopefully you're feeling a little bit better. I know that the party animal in you caught up to you, and you had to get some rest there, sir. We're feeling a little under the weather, but we're glad you're here with us, joining us in the chat. But how about yourself, Pop Smokes? How's the week been treating you so far?
It's been a good week, Munson. I've been trying to enjoy what little of summer we have left up here in Canada. I can't believe I'm saying that. It feels like it just started. But we've had some pretty nice days in July, and I've been getting out there, being active, doing my regular thing, being social sometimes, having a good time. So, yeah, it's been a good week. And there's lots of stuff in wrestling happening, too. But we have some stuff to talk about tonight, too.
Yeah, you know what? But first of all, again, We got McWiggin up in the house asking, how's it going, Bobby and Papa Smokes? Those horns are up. I'm going to back right to you. McWiggin, how are you doing? Obviously, we're doing good because it's Thursday night. We got friends up in the chat. We're going to be talking about the Iron Sheik, as you would have seen in the name of the show and stuff. I think if we got time, Papa Smokes, afterwards, we might even check out MLW while we're at it tonight, because I hear there might be a tryout for the Bullmaye Fight Club on tonight's episode.
I also heard that. Very interesting. I wonder who they're going to audition.
Oh no, it's already been given away, because Mocha Traps was all over telling everybody what the main event is tonight. And it was pretty obvious from what the tapings were what it was going to be. It's my boy Jay Bougie. He's getting his opportunity in the ring against Mr. Mocha Traps. Your good friend, Mr. Thomas. That's the main event.
Oh hell yeah!
Tonight. So
hell yeah.
Yeah, we got a good one there ahead of us. And Josh taking us, friends, as always, honor and acknowledge my friends. Dude, I'm I had a little too much before I went on. I couldn't even read that, man. That's my bad too. But I'm glad our fans understand what kind of stream this is. Papa Smokes, bye Birdie. Welcome to the land of the X.
Yeah. I'm gonna need a new tagline at the end there when I give my socials out. But my Twitter hasn't changed to X yet. Has everybody else's? Mine still has the little bird in the same layout as it always did.
Yeah, I don't know. I've heard what I've heard, but I haven't seen the results yet anyway. But I don't know. Papa Smokes, are you on board with the X?
I'm down with the X. I think it's kind of crazy to change the name of something that's so ingrained in everybody's mind already. It might be a tough sell to change the name, but I'm down with the X.
You bet. It's going to be curious to see how that pans out. But Mick Wiggin coming in a good day when I get to catch you guys. Hey, it's a good day when we get to have you hanging out in the chat here with us. It's absolutely fantastic. We got a rocking party up in this room here tonight, Pop Smokes. I'm loving it. Loving every second of it. Hopefully everybody's got their drinks. They've got themselves a nice relaxing place. And we're going to start off tonight going a little bit of a retrospective here, Papa Smokes. Again, just recently we lost one of the legends of professional wrestling in the Iron Sheik. And again, stories of how the actual cause of his death came out just recently. It was due to a heart failure. Very unfortunate. Love the Iron Sheik. Love his body of work. Love what he became. You talk about the land of the X. Prior to the land of the X, he was like the king of the Twitter land there too with his stuff. He became almost synonymous with this later part of his life, just calling out Hulk Hogan on social media in the end.
Yeah, he was one of those guys that managed to take his notoriety from wrestling and just translate it over into the real world, and people were just ready to eat all that up too, and how clever he was to do that with his nephews. The Morgan brothers, I think, were helping him quite a lot. His nephews that made that first big documentary about him, and they kept him current and relevant and in the spotlight. Yeah.
So we're going to get into his career here, Papa Smokes, let people know a little bit more about him. Now, I want to first give a shout out to, there is a documentary of the Iron Sheik. I mean, there's multiples. Obviously, there's the A&E biography that produced by the WWE recently about him. But also there is a really nice in-depth one that you can catch on Amazon Prime, at least here in Canada. I don't know about the US, but there is one available there that I sat down and watched him. The stuff I didn't know about the Iron Sheik was amazing. Like, I wasn't as familiar with his background, his earlier work. Again, being what do they call the position when he's the right-hand man to the Shah over in Iran?
Yeah, he was already known as one of the country's greatest grapplers of amateur wrestling, of course, in a country, Iran, that is obsessed with amateur wrestling. I mean, they turn out such strong Olympic teams every year and all that stuff. They're totally down with the grappling there. And the Iron Sheik, or Khosrow Vaziri, was one of the top grapplers in the country. So he was ending up being a bodyguard, so to speak, for the Shah of Iran, which is an exalted position for a guy of humble beginnings like him. And also put him near to something that could be dangerous as well. And he had seen a few of his friends get arrested and get ostracized, and possibly tortured in jail, possibly executed, and Sheiky Baby thought to himself, damn, that could be me next. I'm getting the hell out of here. And he did. And I love that story that he got the plane and got the hell out of Iran, flew right to Minneapolis, Minnesota, because the only guy he knew in America was one of the wrestling coaches that he had met that was a coach at University of Minnesota. So I can't remember the guy's name, but at any rate, the Sheik only knew 2 words in English, and it was Tom Jenkins or whatever this guy's name was. And he just went to the airport, got off the plane, and started saying, Tom Jenkins, Tom Jenkins. And nobody knew what the hell he was talking about, but they contacted this guy, and he came down and, oh, geez, wow, it's you got out kind of thing. And talk about a rough move to a different country. He couldn't speak the language, only knew one guy, but excuse me, look what he made out of it too. From that one contact that he had, he went on to coach many other college wrestling teams, both in Minnesota and in California, and just made his way through there. And said he learned English watching Sesame Street.
And he became the assistant coach to the U.S. 1972 Olympic team as well. They just, due to his amateur background in Greco-Roman wrestling. I mean, this guy was a physical beast and quite the champion when it came to Greco-Roman wrestling.
Yeah, and not as big at that time as he ended up being as a pro wrestler. He was a 165-pound kind of guy or whatever like that, and he was awesome, and everybody knew his technique and his tenacity. Everybody respected that. The U.S. college system was so glad to have another coach of that kind of metal along with their programs and everything. He fit right in, but it was a culture shock too. He had to learn the language and a lot of different things about the culture at that time too.
You bet. Look what we got coming up in the house here. It's our good friend Astrid Pizarro joining us. Astrid, hello from the Video Bros. How are you doing? Thanks for joining us on a Thursday night. Always happy to see you here. Talking about the Iron Sheik and his career again. Moving into the fact that okay, we'll take another quick pause because, we always say hi to the new friends coming up in the chat. And this is a great friend of ours, very close friend, Chris Parrish, joining us. How you doing, brother? I imagine you're just about to get into your vehicle. You got your video set up on your dashboard so you can see your favorite Video Bros on screen on a Thursday night. Appreciate you. We got Astrid Sage keeping us in the background while she does some writing. Hey, we appreciate being tabbed, being in your thoughts, anything like that. That we absolutely appreciate everything that everyone does. McWigan thought we were going to be talking about Akbar. He's not the Iron Sheik, but he is a good Sheik, mind you. He's a golden Sheik, that's for sure.
We could, and those two had a face down some years ago. I don't know if you've ever seen that clip, either of you guys. He appeared for that PWA. Iron Sheik came and had a little face-to-face with Akbar Shabazz.
Yep.
Shabazz saying to the Iron Sheik, I would have beat the Hulk Hogan. Iron Sheik slapping his face for that.
That was a great moment. I loved every second of that. McWigan, some great Sheiks in wrestling. I got to find that clip. It's out there for sure. I've seen it multiple times. It's fantastic.
Yeah.
Check out, I'm pretty sure it's on Sheiky socials. If you go to Akbar's socials, it's on there somewhere. There's no way he wouldn't have a copy of that somewhere.
Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. I'm going so much faster than the guy in front of me. Get around him, brother. Get around him. Perfect. Yeah, it's out there. You'll find it, man. You'll find it. But yeah, going back to the Iron Sheik, mind you, again, now going over to the United States, it was kind of, if I'm not mistaken, Vern Gagne that sort of ushered him into the side of pro wrestling.
Yeah, very much so. And I always liked Iron Sheik's Hall of Fame induction, or WWE Hall of Fame induction, where he quickly tells the story and, Mr. Gagne, give me a job and give me a chance. I set up ring. I take down ring. I drive ring truck all the way from St. Paul, Minnesota to Winnipeg, down to Chicago and over to Cleveland and everything. That's a lot of miles, baby. So funny. That's what he trusted him to do. They didn't have a gimmick for him, and they had nothing going on for him. So, and he couldn't speak the language well enough to do promos or anything. So, we want you here, but we're going to start you out slow.
Yeah, and he like when they did start off slow, they actually started him as a baby famous gimmick before he became the notorious Sheik that he would eventually become.
Yeah. Even earlier than that, when he was working in the South, he used to be on Georgia Championship Wrestling and a few other things, just as Khosrow Vasiri. Didn't have the mustache yet. Much more svelte body than we know him as a much younger guy in his 20s. And yeah, even in the South, they had him as a baby face, just as a sort of Kurt Angle type character, or a Bob Backlund type thing, where he's just got all the amateur skill in the world, which can carry him through a pro match. And that's total babyface gimmick right there. And it didn't matter about his different background or anything. The fans took to him to a certain amount. I mean, obviously he wasn't the next Dwayne Johnson or anything, but they liked him, and they, as fans, always appreciate a guy with technical skill.
Yeah, for sure they do. Just going over to his good brother here, Chris Parrish. On a brighter note, I told my hand to get a job. Off my screen. Damn it, Parrish.
Dirty dad jokes.
Back to the Iron Sheik. Get you one of these days. Back to the Iron Sheik. You're damn it. So again, I just now this you made me lose my train of thought there. You see what Basser's trying to do with this one. I know exactly what he's up to. We're not reverting back to Bobby's old ways on that one, buddy. Good try though. Mick Wiggins scratching the beard. Thinking a little bit, yes. This could be time. Okay, we're back in this game. Okay, so I was going to ask you though, Pop Smokes, again, because I know that you grew up with the AWA in the Winnipeg area. Were you privy at all at the time to ever see the Iron Sheik? I know that it might have predated your time going to the shows, but I wasn't sure if he ever made an appearance there.
Yeah, no, I never saw Iron Sheik, much to my dismay. I don't think I knew who he was back then. He had not made his name yet. I don't even think he had the bald head and the mustache yet, which was an addition to his gimmick, which he might have got down south in Georgia. I had first encountered him, excuse me, again before the accessibility of the internet to everybody. We were following in the magazines, the After Mags, as they call them, Pro Wrestling Illustrated, Inside Wrestling, and The Wrestler. And I had seen pictures of him in there in Georgia territory as a heel. By this time, he had bald head, mustache, curly-toed boots, but he was known as Hossein Arab. And that's the first time I saw the guy. He did lots down there. I think he was really just learning his chops as a pro at that time, going through Texas, going through Tennessee and Florida and all that stuff. And he was, despite his kind of lack of skill and knowledge about how to work wrestling matches at that time, he still presents as such a good villain, right? Again, the bald head, the big mustache, the otherness of being someone who is legitimately from another country, with a strong accent and all that. If you spin that as a wrestling promoter, you can make the fans, at least in that era, it's not the same thing today, but at least in that era, you could get the fans hot at a guy like that. So just that look alone, and then when he started bringing the flag out there, and remember, this is in the 80s too, when things were really heating up between the U.S. and Iran. There was that hostage crisis where all those journalists from America were taken hostage in Iran, and it was very tense. It was looking like a big war was going to happen over that. A lot of tension. So of course McMahon's going to jump all over that, and other promoters as well, and create a character out of that.
You bet. And like Mick Wiggins said, definitely had a unique look that you need in professional wrestling. Yeah, I mean, a
Oh,
big boy, coupled with the fact that he could work like nobody's business from his amateur background and everything like that. And then here's something I wanted to bring up before we get into more of his wrestling side, is that he actually introduced the Persian Club Challenge back then as well too. And these, if you haven't seen these things, go and YouTube them. And these are these two massive clubs on these handles or whatever, and you've got to kind of do like this full rotation with your arms like this. And I mean, imagine most of us trying to do that without two gigantic heavy pieces of weight in our hands would get tired pretty fast. Iron Sheik was an absolute beast at doing this, and this is what he would actually challenge other wrestlers to try to outbeat him in the Persian Club Challenge.
yeah, that was the whole gimmick, is that nobody could do it. Even the big guys like the Road Warriors and stuff, just to try and pick them up straight like this was so hard, because I'm not sure how much each one weighs, but they're a little bit unsteady. It's not like a nice regular barbell kind of. It's something different, and the whole technique of spinning them is something that the Sheik had been doing all his life in his workouts and stuff. So he had the technique down. But even some of those big, strong wrestlers were unable to get that going whatsoever, because it takes such years and years just to have the hand and wrist and forearm strength to grip those tight enough to do that. And plus the whole technique of spinning them around your head without smashing them into your head. And it's a whole thing. And probably the most famous example of that was when on WWF TV, Iron Sheik challenged champion Bob Backlund to do those exercise clubs. And Backlund came in on TV, and again, he was having trouble with them, but he was kind of getting them going a little bit. And then, of course, the Sheik with Blassie jumps Backlund and hits him with the exercise clubs and everything. That's the injury that Backlund took into his championship match against the Sheik, which he lost against the Sheik. That's why he was vulnerable to the camel clutch in that match, is because the Sheik had injured him in the club swinging challenge the week before.
Yeah, you bet. And mentioned about Bob Backlund, we are going to get to that, because a major story that played out in the history of professional wrestling due to the Iron Sheik and Bob Backlund's involvement. That includes, his multiple runs with the WWF that we'll talk about in a second here. But, he did have runs in other companies prior to that, including, I did read that worked a little bit over in Japan against Antonio Inoki at one point too.
Geez, I haven't seen that match. I didn't realize the Sheik did much Japanese stuff, but if you say one tour, yeah, I could see that happening. And
this would have been earlier, like pre first WWF run that he did.
Okay. But I could definitely see Inoki and the boys being interested in a pure grappler like the Sheik. They would have a spot for a guy with that skill set without question.
Yeah, hell yeah, man. Why wouldn't they be? And again, I haven't seen the match myself. I love to see Iron Sheik and Inoki. I think that would be fantastic watch.
Yeah, but I wonder how that went. I'm sure that Sheik always keeps his temper with the person that's paying him. So I'm sure he kept his temper in that match, but I'd hate to see it if either of those guys lost their composure during that match. That could get violent in a big hurry. That's two shoot grapplers right there.
You bet. So some of the in-between work he did too, again, Jim Crockett Promotions, that would have been a run from 1980 to 81, working over there. He did Mid-South from 81 to 82, did a little bit of championship wrestling from Florida, and then, of course, Georgia Championship Wrestling. And before his return to the WWF, this was where he was. This kind of ushered into that whole transition of Vince McMahon buying Georgia Championship Wrestling, and that kind of being along with it, taking a lot of the stars from the different promotions at the time.
For sure. And he got quite a deal there, McMahon, too. Well, especially because he never actually ended up paying the money that he promised for it. But that's McMahon style business anyway. But yeah, he got quite a deal. And when you get a package of a package of wrestlers coming into your territory that you've got control over now, I'm sure McMahon was loving seeing Hossein Arab at that time, soon to be known as the Iron Sheik, because again, that presentation is so perfect. You can make him into all kinds of different kinds of villains. He looks like a villain from a kid's movie or some kind of adventure movie, you know, like a bad guy. He's absolutely perfect. And McMahon knew that he had this big baby face coming up, Hulk Hogan, that was going to be the All-American and wave the flag and give the whole patriotism, white meat baby face kind of treatment. He knew that he was going to have to feed this guy a series of heels, and he was going to have heels that could work and were over with a gimmick that would resonate with the fans and cause some emotion and hatred among the fans. What more perfect than nationalism, right? With a patriotic champion or a not champion yet, I guess, but up and coming babyface like Hulk Hogan. Volkov and the Iron Sheik were some of the perfect foils for that.
They sure were. Josh coming in saying the McMahons were a bit of rascals during contract payments. Yeah, just to say the least. Vince is he's built himself quite the empire off of other people's money throughout his career. I can't deny that. I mean, hey, he's done well for himself. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people would take Vince's dirty money if they had the opportunity. I'd let him buy me a beer. I'd let him buy me a beer. I mean,
you can agree to take his money, whether he actually pays you or not, and whether or not you can afford to take him to court over that is another question altogether. He ripped off 1 million promoters for lots of money, man.
He's a ruthless man. That's never going to be contested. Quick fact: Earthquake saved Hogan in Japan from getting his eye hooked out of his head. Yeah. John Tenta was great. That's another guy we should talk about on the show here sometime too. That was, I believe, and I've told you this, Pop, supposed to Earthquake or John Tenta was the first wrestler I saw on screen as a little kid. I remember turning it on. There was on the TV this big, massive man. I'm like, what is this? And he is pushing around this little scrawny guy inside the ring, and then he does the whole jumping around his opponent, and next thing you know, he's jumping and sitting on him. I'm like, oh damn. I'm like, I like this. What is this kind of stuff? And I was glued from there. I was a fan. So ultimately, Earthquake drew me into professional wrestling.
Yeah, everyone's got that one person that piqued their interest at the very beginning, at least. But I always found Tenta interesting. Like, you talk about amateur wrestlers coming into pro wrestling. Tenta came in from sumo. Hey, he was over there doing sumo.
Yeah, that's what Josh just came into. Professional sumo. Yeah, and then of course, like, I mean, they had to use that down the road with the no ring ropes Earthquake versus Yokozuna sumo wrestling match.
Yeah,
the Samoan versus the other guy that actually is a professional sumo wrestler.
Yeah.
Fantastic. But we started talking about it, so let's talk about the WWF portion of Iron Sheik's career. Would have started originally in 1979, only lasting a year at first. There he came in, ended up winning a battle royal at Madison Square Garden, and then earned a title shot against Bob Backlund at the time. And speaking of All-Americans, that was the transition. Bob Backlund was the original All-American babyface that they had going over for them in the dub.
For sure. He was more American than apple pie kind of thing. And he had been the college wrestling hero. And he didn't say your prayers and eat your vitamins, but he might as well have. It was the same kind of ethos that he had. Be strong for yourself and be happy and be a good person kind of thing. And Backlund wouldn't give kids autographs unless they could name all the American presidents and all the rest of that kind of babyface stuff. But you have to think of what Vince was thinking of at this time too. He's got Hulk Hogan away from Verne Gagne. He knows that's going to be his big push. So he needs heels, and he's got to switch this title situation around because Hogan's a babyface and so is Backlund. But he doesn't want Backlund anymore. That was his dad's champion. The people aren't buying the white bread guy like that anymore. I got to change it up a bit. So you need a transitional champion in between. And the Sheik, was basically just in the right place at the right time. Despite his skill and all the rest of that, that could have been anyone. He could have done it with Piper and Orndorff and all those guys that eventually were there, and or Cowboy Bob Orton or any of those guys. But it worked out perfectly that for the Sheik, and I think Backlund also wanted to work with the Sheik for the same reason that they were both amateur wrestlers. I think Backlund, if he had any say in the matter, which he might not have, or he might have said, I'll have a match with the Sheik. We can wrestle. I'll wrestle with him. I won't feel any shame losing to Iron Sheik because he's an actual grappler.
Yeah. And so here's where things start to get really interesting, because when he came back for a second time, this also involved Bob Backlund right away, because again, Bob Backlund with that historic run, although can be very much disputed when it comes to the whole Inoki New Japan portion of the run of Bob Backlund in the WWF Championship. But so Backlund's still the champion. Iron Sheik comes back in, and this is where it's kind of in that period when they're wanting to transition. This is where they want Hulk Hogan to be that next clean-cut, babyface, all-American hero that they were looking to have done. And in order to do that, they either needed to turn Backlund heel, or they're going to have to find somebody to be a transitional champion. And that's what they ended up getting here. As we say good evening to our good friend Joe Morin, Big Corporate Joe, Big Joe, whatever you call him. He's a good guy. Joe, how are you doing, sir? Glad to have you out here on a Thursday night for Ring Respect Radio. Josh coming in. Funny thing, Hulk Hogan was originally going to be an Irishman, but with the success of the All-American battling a Sheik, a Giant, so on and so on, Hogan was going to have bright red. Yeah. I think they made the right choice in the end in terms of the money that they pulled in and everything like that too. So I think that going the All-American route definitely worked in the company's favor. But in order to get there, and I want to know how much of this story you can elaborate on, Papa Smokes. So the idea is that Sheik won the belt from Bob Backlund. He goes in, and this wasn't very long after he had won this. He was going into that matchup with Hulk Hogan. The intent is that Hulk Hogan supposed to walk out as the champion, as the clean-cut babyface, the hero. That's what Vince wanted. But yet there's stories that Vern Gagne might have offered the Sheik $100,000 to break Hulk Hogan's leg in that matchup, and how that could have changed the course of history.
Yeah, very much so. I know this same rumor. I've heard it many times as well. I don't know if it's true or not. However, once again, in his WWE Hall of Fame induction, Iron Sheik tells that story, much to many people's dismay. They show Shane McMahon's face at Jericho, and they're kind of like, I don't think you should tell that on camera, bro. But yeah, that's apparently what happened. Vern was furious with McMahon about he had his company and his livelihood very badly damaged by McMahon's business practices, which isn't to say that it was unfair or anything like that. Nothing's fair in business. There's you don't have to have ethics in business if you don't want to, and McMahon doesn't. So I mean, that's the way that was going to happen. But it didn't make Gagne any happier, and he still had ties with Iron Sheik and said, Sheik, break the jabroni's leg and bring the belt back to Minnesota. We'll embarrass him on TV, and it'll strike at his business. It won't finish him off or anything, but what a strike that would have been, and what an embarrassment for McMahon that would have been. That's some pretty dirty pool in pro wrestling standards, though.
Yeah. We got Joe coming in saying, I miss the days of properly developed heels and baby faces. But that's here's the issue with that. And the biggest problem I find is that fans have become so jaded that they like the ultra violence. They like the vicious human beings that you're supposed to hate. They grow this attraction to these monsters that come out and devastate people. It is hard to build a true heel. It's almost reversed in some ways. Sometimes the clean cut, yay, I'm all American, all Canadian, I can wrestle well. That's the one they turn on. It really seems to be that the person who lives a good, clean, well put balanced life is the one the fans nowadays modernly tend to resent. And the guys that come out there and would use a lead pipe on their own mother to pick up a W are the ones they're cheering for and making into the baby faces.
I hear you. It is definitely like that. I think it's a combination of the fans are smarter to everything and they anticipate more stuff. But I also think that wrestlers nowadays, they all want to be popular, and heels shouldn't be trying to be cool or to be liked or popular, in my opinion. If it happens that way, which it very, very rarely does organically, Stone Cold Steve Austin, yeah, I'm talking to you right there. There's very few examples where it's actually happened organically without anyone trying. But if you're a heel, you got to make them hate you. You got to make them fear you. And that's your job, man. And if they don't, if they're cheering you and stuff, you've failed as a heel, in my opinion.
Yeah, that's true. I mean, go watch El Assassino. There isn't one person cheering for that. You might be the only person on this earth, Papa Smokes, that's cheering for El Assassino in every way. Good evening to the Twitch chat international continental champion of the world. That's our good friend Chris Best there joining us up in the house on a Thursday night. We got Josh Joseph. If it's true, the legend goes he was going to break his leg like his trainer did in Japan to let Hogan know he needs to go back and learn how to wrestle. Nice. I'd say Hogan knew, he understood the wrestling and everything, despite what people might think about his career. I mean, was he the best in-ring wrestler? No. But could he do what he needed to do? Yeah, he could. I mean, let's not kid ourselves. And he was better at it earlier on, definitely. I mean, I think he got into kind of a mold or an expectation of what was expected of him, which is why you saw the minimalist stuff that you would see within his WWF run. But it's what people paid to come see. They wanted the big boot. They wanted the leg drop. They wanted the bear hug that he fought back out of. He was the clean-cut babyface that worked at the time. It was the sign of the times, and it was done well. It really was.
No, absolutely. And just like you said, it's nothing fancy. There's nothing fancy about Hogan's style whatsoever. Even as a babyface, he always worked a heel style. It was all punching and kicking in the corner, choking guys with his boot, the fingernails raking down the back. He did that the whole time he was babyface champion because that's the style he learned. But I probably like Hogan more as a wrestler now than I ever did in the rest of my life because now I kind of get it. He's an old school, he's a crusty old school wrestler because he worked in the ring. He didn't do ring work. You know what I mean? He hardly did any moves, but he got the maximum effect out of all of them through his charisma, his facial expressions, his interactions and bonding with the crowd. He's like the ultimate worker in a way, just that he doesn't do a whole bunch of moves. He hardly does any moves, and half of them are heel moves, and they still cheer him for it. He's one of those special exceptions to the rule that just he was going to get over no matter what because he has that charisma inside.
You bet. Chris coming in. My roommate once told me he hated The Miz because he's an asshole. Now my roommate is a part-time WWE watcher. I turned to him and said, well, he's doing his job right. Yeah, well, I mean, again, I think a lot of people at one point in time absolutely loathe The Miz, but the more you see the efforts he puts in, the more you can appreciate what he does. Joe saying he's a very old school wrestling fan or very old school when it comes to pro wrestling, for better or worse. For better, dude. Like Pop Smokes and I, we love the old school stuff. As you can see, that's why we're doing retrospectives on people we enjoy, like the Iron Sheik. But, you know, like Pop Smokes and I like to say, we're old school guys with a modern twist because we can like some of the new stuff too. We find the silver lining in most clouds anyway. Josh saying Bam Bam scared him as a child. Bam Bam scares me as a full-blown adult. Man, like, I'm pretty sure that dude could put me between two slices of bread and eat me for lunch. Damn, that's a scary man. So, We got Joe coming in. Hogan wrestled great over in Japan. He had to. They don't screw around over there, especially back then. Yeah, exactly. I mean, he would have been put to the test. They're gonna work him, and he's gonna have to give back as much as he takes there. And Basser saying Hogan was on Theo Vaughn this week. It was actually a great Hulk Hogan interview. He seemed very humble. That's good. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah, I actually heard some of that. It was entertaining. He was just I kept waiting for some elaborate lies, but I didn't hear any in the parts I heard. He was being pretty straight up. Yeah, like I say, I never liked Hogan growing up because he was the guy that was spoon fed to you and shoved down your throat kind of thing, and I just rebelled against that kind of thing. But now I sort of get it with Hogan. He was smart. He was saving his body. He wasn't taking too many bumps. And now people look back and say, oh, his matches weren't spectacular. Yeah, but they were drawing 1,000 times the money of any other wrestler at that time. So how can you argue with it? He had such a successful style.
Yeah, he really did. It's love it or hate it, it worked, and it made the money, and that's what it's all about there sometimes. Give me the Hart Foundation over. I'm not debating you on that, well, Josh. Yeah. 100%, dude. Like, love the Hart Foundation. So I mean, yeah. But I mean, again, like, it just goes without saying that family in general, just they understand both sides of it. They understand the selling side of it and the entertainment side of it, but they really understand the in-ring work side of it. They're great professional wrestlers. And give me the Rougeaus. Don't have to laugh about it, Chris. Why not? Like, no harm in being a fan of the Rougeaus, if you ask me.
No, especially as Canadians, they're like legendary promoters out in Montreal. They've legendary wrestlers, and in the world of promoting, they've put together some absolutely huge shows for a long time.
Now let's talk about the tag team that was formed within the WWF for the Iron Sheik when they teamed him up with Nikolai Volkov and becoming the evil heel faction, the international heel faction that comes over. And I love the part where it stand for the Soviet national anthem. Speaking of the Hart Foundation, I mean, we know that famous one where Brett and Anvil weren't going to listen to it any further and actually make the attack on the Iron Sheik and Nikolai Volkov during that segment. I mean, I thought the tag team was fantastic. I mean, they were exactly what they needed. A good, strong heel team working together in tandem. And again, former WWF tag team champions as well, too.
For sure. And think of how that got put together. Like, those were both guys that came up from the sale of Georgia Championship Wrestling and all that, and some of Vince's other acquisitions throughout the territories during that time. Anyway, he got a Nikolai Volkov, who was probably looks 45 or older in there. Iron Sheik at that time is 40 for sure. These are guys on the downsides of their career by this time, but sticking these two foreign menaces together, one the great big strong guy Nikolai, and then the smaller but still very strong wrestler Iron Sheik. It worked out nicely as a tag team and represented America's political enemies at the time, Iran and Russia, or the Soviet Union, I guess we should say. That was before the fall of the Berlin Wall and all that. Mm-hmm. And it was perfect. He was trying to get that tag division going again. Again, this is switching around from how his dad had it. He's going to make some changes. Vince Jr. with a plan to go national cable and everything. Everything's got to be just right. So let's get this foreign menace tag team heel group going. I got them at a bargain from some Southern wrestling territory. So let's use them. And then, of course, stick them with a manager who can handle it on the mic. Classy Freddie Blassie. We've talked about him many times on here. And he brought that star quality to a tag team that would have trouble getting over with promos. So perfect, absolutely perfect. And then bringing in some babyface tag teams such as Wyndham and Rotunda as the USA Express. And remember, that was one of the big matches of the first WrestleMania was Sheik and Volkov versus USA Express. Barry Windham, Mike Rotunda.
Yeah, and that's when they won the belts too. They using
Yeah.
Classy's Kane at the time to pick up the victory there in good heat fashion. And again, like Josh said, Ultimate Heat Tag Team agreed, and Chris Best saying loved the nuclear heat that they got. However, don't think it worked when Slick managed them in particular. Good call, Chris. Appreciate that one. We got Joe coming in. I also remember Hogan turning heel in WCW was on right after Saturday morning cartoons. But yeah, very much like Cena, Hogan could be either heel or face, just depending on where they were. I think the reason Hogan worked so well as heel is because nobody expected it. I think the world had kind of grown tired of the clean-cut baby face, and then just ultimately when you didn't see it coming, and like Joe said, you're a young kid. At least I was. Joe might have been too, and I'm not sure. Well, you might have been in that jaded teenage era or so there, Papa Smokes at the time. Not too sure, but I recall it too, turning it on, and here we are. Here comes Hulk Hogan, the mighty that comes to save the day all the time. And no, it wasn't happening that night. That was the first time I had in professional wrestling legitimately seen fans throw stuff at the wrestlers, despite, the good old saying, don't throw things at the wrestlers.
For sure. And that's, why that heel turn worked so good too, is because nobody remembers Hogan ever as a heel. He was a babyface for so long. That's why when that works, you don't screw with it. You leave it like that. And you got to keep that card in your pocket for when you really need it, because McMahon never ended up needing it. He drew money with Hogan as a babyface, never had to change a thing all the time till he decided it was getting old. Then he ditched him. Hogan goes over to WCW, wants to do the same thing, knows that has worked in the past. And that's when Hall and Nash and Bischoff broke it to him, so to speak, and said, hey, man, I don't think that, let me tell you something, brother, stuff is still going to work anymore. Like, we got to freshen you up a little bit. And yeah, then that was the first ever heel turn for Hogan, so to speak, right? I know that he started as a heel when he was young, before all this, but he was a baby face for 12 years straight or something. And that's why some of these turns don't work on TV anymore, because everybody's turning all the time. Bret Hart said they turned him twice on the same episode of Nitro, or Nitro, I guess. And he was another guy that was just a babyface hero for years and years. You got to be careful with that turn. You got to save it for the perfect moment, or you waste it. It means nothing.
And I'm just going to say I'm glad that Joe covered this up, because I was going to ask what school he went to when he was a kid. He remembers in school them teaching us to duck and cover under our desk in case the Russians attacked, like a wooden desk would protect us from a nuclear blast. And Joe, thank you very much for the because I was going to ask what kind of school you were going to and what they were teaching you back then, my friend. But Josh Joseph coming in. Freddie was my great grandmother's favorite, and she said he tipped the best at the bar that she owned. That's just awesome.
Oh.
Your great grandmother got to serve drinks to Freddie
Wow.
Blassie. I like that.
Very cool.
Yeah. And Chris Best, I recall people thinking Hogan's heel turn was his fact when first he worked heel with Freddie Blassie. But yeah, man, it's been quite the ride. And then, I think we covered most things. I mean, the Iron Sheik kind of had that on off. He was 3 times in the WWF, working various things there. Worked slightly in the NWA from 89 to 91. Joe, it happens to me all the time, my friend. Trust me. I knew where you're going. We just gotta have a little fun. It's all good. But yeah, outside of that, I mean, he was part of that whole the rock and wrestling era of WWF. Got to be part of the cartoon. I think he was featured in the music video that Cyndi Lauper had done as well too. What else can you tell us, Pop Smokes? What other notes have you taken about the Iron Sheik that you can tell us here today?
Well, I was going to say that a big part of his popularity and fame in Vince Jr.'s WWF was the fact that they were just doing so much merchandising at that time. And Iron Sheik was a hated heel. But when they started putting those wrestling dolls out, or sorry, figures as we're supposed to call them now, don't think that the heels are going to sell as well. But the thing was, every kid that had Hulk Hogan or Sergeant Slaughter, the babyface, had to have a heel to fight with, right? You can't just have one wrestling doll. What do? Just look at it or make it stand there? You have to have a match. So Iron Sheik, again, it's that look, man, that mustache and the head and the boots and everything. So recognizable that everybody loved him, but didn't love him, but loved to hate him as a heel. So therefore his wrestling doll sold so much back then as the perfect foil to the Hulk Hogan doll. He made so much money off of that, as far as I've ever read. Just an absolute mint in money.
And as the saying went later in life, fuck the Hulk Hogan. But we got Chris coming in. When he came back in 91 as Colonel Mustafa, I didn't put two and two together that it was the Sheik. That was the great thing about wrestling back then. Is disbelief was so suspended. You didn't have the internet to ruin it for you. You didn't know anything. I mean, I didn't know that that Kama Mustafa was also Papa Shango and eventually the Godfather. I mean, man of many jobs back then. You just never. I didn't know Yokozuna wasn't actually from Japan. So I mean, hey, more fool me, but for the better because it worked back then. I miss guys like Iron Sheik. That dude stayed in character until the day he died. Much respect for that. Yeah, hell yeah, brother. Love the Iron Sheik. Not only is great in-ring work, but after watching that documentary on Amazon Prime there, and props to our boy Jeff there that comes to the PPW shows for recommending that to me. He's been all about his fandom of the Iron Sheik all of a sudden now too, after checking that out. Once we got him coming to PPW, he's starting to dip a little bit more into the professional wrestling side, and he watched the documentary on the Iron Sheik, and he just all talk about how awesome Iron Sheik was. And I love having that kind of chatter around the office.
For sure. And that's a fun thing for wrestling fans at any level, new fans, old fans, when you get to see a good retrospective of someone's life, not just their wrestling life, not just their career, but their life. It colors up that person's personality so much for you, and it can make you into a fan very easily. And of course, in those biographies, the Iron Sheik's life story is every bit as interesting as his wrestling life. Excuse me, including his escape from Iran and his struggles in America and his Pan Am Games experiences and all that kinds of stuff, including becoming a hit wrestler in America. It's truly a success story of an immigrant that came to America with a dream, right? Like maybe I could make my way, maybe I could get my home, my family, and something to retire on here and making good with it. And it's no one turned out to be a bigger American patriot than Iron Sheik, because the country that he immigrated to gave him every chance. He took all those chances and it paid off for him. He had a tough life and he didn't always have save up all the money that he had made throughout his career, but it allowed him to have a life, a family, his children that he loved. And yeah, he lived the American dream.
Yeah. And as Chris saying, that documentary really tugs at his heartstrings when it comes to Sheik. Yeah, it's a good watch, though. A very solid watch. Joe saying, I picture him saying, fuck the Hulk Hogan during his dying breath. I wouldn't have wanted it any other way, and I don't think anybody else would. That's absolutely perfect. And also his Twitter account was fun. He was the greatest to follow just because everything, you knew that it was just him being his character. And he loved doing it, and you could tell he was embracing it. And I think that's why so many people just absolutely connected, even if you didn't know him prior to that. I think a lot of people went back and checked out who the Iron Sheik was because of the fact that he was so vocal on social media. Even though it sounded negative, you didn't take it that. You knew he was just busting balls, as always, being that good old heel character, and mad respect and love for the Iron Sheik for everything he did in a professional wrestling ring and throughout his career.
Yeah, same for me too. To the staying relevant to the young fans on Twitter is just another chapter in a guy who managed to get fame by hook or by crook. And my God, what a life he had and what a career he had. Sad to see him go, but every moment, every mile of his journey was interesting for all of us, and hopefully rewarding for him. He'll always be remembered as one of the key cogs in the whole wrestling machine when everything changed in 1983 when Vince McMahon Jr. took over the company from his father. They were tumultuous times. Excuse me. The whole business was changing, and everybody had their ear to the ground, wondering what was going to happen. Sheik right in the middle of all of that.
Yeah, it's he is a fantastic, phenomenal individual, and again, like I said, yeah, also sad to see him go. This has been a awesome retrospective on his career. In fact, one of our most successful, and that's thanks to all of you in the chat who have been very vocal, very talkative, and having that knowledge as well too, because it's like you're part of the group here with us. Fantastic. The more we can get these things going with you guys in the chat, coming in, sharing that knowledge and those stories as well too. Absolutely love it. I mean, man, I didn't think we would get a full hour plus out of one conversation about one wrestler, and it means the world to me that we were able to make this such a success here tonight.
Yeah, and it's testament to what an interesting guy he was too, and what a fruitful career he had too. That guys like us, admittedly, neither of us having seen him live or been in the same room with the man, can talk about his accomplishments for this long. Us and our friends in the chat always bringing a little bit of fact checking, some opinions and all that. Everything adds to make it a more interesting discussion. Thanks to all you guys out there. Always appreciate the comments.
Yeah, and we're not gone just yet. We'll hang out with you guys a little bit longer and chat again. Jose and him and Piper were two guys that Carl and himself wanted to interview. Sadly, never had the opportunity. Man, that would have been sweet. Like either one of those guys at any time, a chat would have been great. Bastard, my brother, throwing up the OLE symbols. Ole, brother, ole, stick around, man. We got a little bit of time left. Chris Best coming in. Probably talk about the Sheik longer, to be honest. Let's go for it, brother. What do you got for us? I mean, we're here. We don't have to be done just because Papa Smokes and I have finished talking about the notes we had down. If you got more to share with us, we're open for a conversation here. Where we, as the song says when we play the intro and outro, we don't need no sleep because the party don't stop. And if you guys want to keep the party going, hell yeah, man, I got time.
Well, it was brought up about the 91 run that he did as Colonel Mustafa. That was during the first Gulf War with George Bush Sr. as president, and they were bombing Iraq and everything. And so they, as you all know, they turned Sergeant Slaughter heel and Iraqi sympathizer, and now all of a sudden he's got the belt. So he's coming out to main events, waving the Iraqi flag while there's a war going on of Iraq versus the U.S., including soldiers being hurt and worse, killed, and they're coming out waving that flag. I remember some of those shows looked pretty goddamn hot, man. Like, there was some emotion going around, and I mean, I'm all for using real life stuff to get heat, but some of those topics, when you're at war with a country, like it's sensitive, man. It's really sensitive, but of course they went for it. Had Slaughter's managers as Colonel Mustafa, played by Iron Sheik, just in a different kind of outfit, still had the curly-toed boots. And then the other manager was General Adnan, known to me as Sheik Adnan El-Kaisi from the old AWA days. He was one of the heel managers and an actual guy from Baghdad, Iraq. So that's an interesting guy we should talk about sometime, Munson. And he has a book, too. I bet you that story's pretty good because that guy went to school with Saddam Hussein and was the same age as him and friends with him and stuff. And he also realized he was on Hussein's radar when some political stuff was going on, and he got the hell out of there while he still could. But that's another story for another podcast. But that was a little run using Sheik. I don't think he was good to do much of anything, maybe a back bump or two manager kind of bump spot. And then the other thing of note was that they had that one of the WrestleManias, they had that old timers battle royal. Do you remember that, Munson, with Hillbilly Jim and a bunch of the old guys were in it? Nikolai Volkov, Iron Sheik, and a bunch of old stars. And Iron Sheik wins that battle royal. He looks very stiff and not moving very well. And I know a lot of people, including myself, always wondered, like, I wonder what the booking idea was behind that. Why would they have Iron Sheik winning that battle royal? And apparently the reasoning was that Sheik was the only guy that couldn't take the bump to the outside. So kind of by default, he had to win it. They wanted him in it, but he couldn't go over the top and to the floor. So I guess you win then, Sheik, because you can't take the bump.
Yeah, we got Chris coming in saying it was the WrestleMania 17 gimmick battle royal, and then he also solidified that Sheik won because he couldn't take those bumps. So I mean that's one way to do it. I want to go back to this comment for a minute again, Joe. We really do appreciate not only you stopping by, but that you love the show as well too. We try to do a lot of different things here on Ring Respect Radio. So we do these retrospects. We're, going to try to take a tour around the territories here coming up very soon. We do book reviews, independent wrestling show reviews, MLW, watch-alongs and reviews. And you know what? We've introduced pub trivia. And again, it's been a couple weeks since last month's pub. We got to set a date in August here, Papa Smokes, for Pub Trivia Night 2 here. Or remember, as Twitch so dastardly stopped me from saying, what the fuck do we know about wrestling night 2? Let's have a look at the old calendar here before we'll get to some of your guys' questions and comments here right away. We're looking at Thursdays coming up in the month of August. I'm thinking, let's have a look at maybe the 17th. Or should we do it 2 days before the PPW show, or should we do the week after?
Maybe after. I don't want to let the guys wait for too long. I know they're all salivating at the chance to get at each other again on the battlefield of wrestling pub trivia.
And some new people coming in too. Some that didn't play last time.
No, the field of competition is hot, and the guys are very competitive, and I'm loving it. I loved playing last time, and we got some rivalries. We had challenges. We had rivalries going on of all kinds, and between the two platforms, and we got to get titles. We got to get all kinds of stuff going for this month, and I think it's going to be a lot of fun.
We're having a blast with it. So I'm thinking, okay, because we usually do a Prairie Pro Wrestling special leading into the Prairie Pro show, so that would be the 17th. Why don't we make August 24th? What the fuck do we know about wrestling part 2 here on Ring Respect Radio?
All right.
Setting the date right now here for you guys. We are going to get to your guys' comments in just a moment here before we wrap things up. Again, this is quite the list. Again, love you guys. Thank you for coming out. Going back to this, his smile sold the flag, waving. He delighted in the chaos. Yes. Adnan Al Casey was a very underrated gem of a promo, if I'm being honest. Yeah, you bet, Chris. And again, that'd be a great conversation to be had.
I agree.
Yeah, and you know what? Hey, if we're going to have that conversation, maybe we invite, sounds like Chris Best knows a lot about him. Maybe we could have Chris Best join us here on a Ring Respect Radio to talk about Adnan Al Casey one of these evenings.
Would love to. I still want to get his book and read that real bad. We should maybe look into that.
We definitely should, Chris. We should. We'll talk, my man. We'll figure something out. Our good boy Basser here. Sheik did a run in on the "Who is the better wrestler" episode of Kenny versus Spenny and attacked. I'm not shocked that Spenny got his ass attacked in that one. That seemed like that guy was always taking the worst of it.
I've seen that episode. That was a good one.
Yeah, and Chris Best saying, mentioned to defend my title. Yes, wear that with pride, brother, because you got a big target on your back. Joe saying Carl and I did Turnbuckle Rewind episode for the Gimmick Battle Royal. It should still be on the Turnbuckle Studios channel. I don't know if I've seen that one, but I have watched a fair amount of Turnbuckle Rewind episodes there, Joe. Loved watching it. Again, it was the match is either a picture of the match or whatever, kind of similar to what we were trying there, Papa Smokes, with giving our thoughts on old matchups as they were up on the screen anyway. So that was the one thing when I noticed that Turnbuckle did that, and Joe and Carl were doing those, I was like, damn, that's awesome, because that's exactly what Papa Smokes and I love doing, and what we love talking about as well too here. Joe saying maybe I could hop on as guest someday, especially if you're covering more old school stuff. You bet, brother. Like, that's again, the floor's open.
Yes.
We'll talk about it. We'll see about that happening down the road for something. But yeah, we're kind of getting to that point of the night, man. I'm impressed, you guys. Like, over an hour talking about Sheik. This has been phenomenal. It has been a great night here on Ring Respect Radio. What an audience you have all been. Couldn't thank you enough for this. I know that our good friend Chris Parrish is going to set us up with a Twitch raid over to the lounge. I believe he's a good friend of the channel here, so I believe we're going to head on over there. But as we're getting that all prepared for you guys, again, down at the bottom, rogueenergy.com, where you can use the promo code OLEPODS to get 10% off your order if you're looking for an alternative to energy drinks that you buy in the store. You're looking to change your life around to be a little bit more healthy. Head on over to rogueenergy.com, and then after that, you're going to want to go check out OLE on all the socials, whether it be the TikToks, the Twitches, the YouTubes, the stream, there are all sorts of things. I don't know, what is it, the X now? They're changing names on me, Papa Smokes, the Facebooks. I'm too old to keep up, but I'm in there. We're taking care of them. We got stuff on that. I promise you, we got some cool shit going on. But in the meantime, and in between time there, Papa Smokes, I need you to let the good people that are up in the chat here tonight know where they can reach out to you if they want to reach out to you during the week.
Okay, I got to try a new line here with my social media here. One line horizontal, one line diagonal X. This is where we're at now. Free speech, Elon Musk X site at smokes_Papa. I'm also on Twitch at Papa_Smokes_.
That's where you're going to be able to find Pop Smokes. As for myself, you'll see down at the ticker below. That's where I am. Real Bobby Munson on the X, of course. You can find me on Instagram there, Video Bros SK. You can also check out myself at Papa Smokes every single Saturday over at Prairie Pro Wrestling on YouTube, calling all those matches for you guys. And we got another great one coming up with a debut happening this Saturday for you guys as Bucky McGraw takes on Jared Rogers. We're now over on the Twitch side, over to the lounge. Hope you guys give them a good OLE welcome. And over on the YouTube side, where you guys have been rocking and rolling all night, we thank you for sticking around just a little bit longer. We appreciate you coming out, and we will see you guys next Thursday night. Until then, take care, everybody.